Night 2 in Detroit, it was certainly, among other things, a rematch of sorts. Some people would see it that way, as between Senator Kamala Harris and former Vice President Joe Biden. Given what happened in the last debate, Senator Harris joins us now. How did you feel it went on that stage for you?
I felt good about it. I mean, it was fast. It was.
It feels fast on stage.
It feels fast when you're there. I'm sure for the viewer it went slowly, but. I felt good. I mean, there's so much to discuss, and there's just not enough time to cover the issues. I would have liked to have had a much longer conversation about environment. I would have loved to have a much longer conversation about the economy. There are so many issues that I think the American people actually want to know where we stand and that we're thinking about them.
From the moment the Vice President came out on stage, I think the first thing he said to you, and it's gotten a lot of pickup and a lot of people talking about it online, I believe the words were, "Go easy on me, kid." I'm wondering how you interpreted that.
That's what he wanted me to do. I didn't really think much about it, to be honest with you.
The kid, that's what people was that an issue for you at all?
No.
Did you,
But I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because we're both on that stage running for president. So I'm pretty clear about who I am. Right. So nobody's going to define me on that stage.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of healthcare, you've just put out your plan.
Yep.
In past debates, people have raised questions about where you were on whether or not private insurance should be taken away from people. Your plan is essentially kind of a Medicare for all, except people can keep their plans if they like them for the first 10 years. Is that correct?
Essentially. There's a 10-year phase-in. But what I've done is that, I have to tell you, Anderson, I've been listening to people. And I said from the first day that I announced my candidacy that I, especially at this phase of the campaign, will listen as much as I talk. And I've been listening to people. And they want to know that they have an option to keep a private plan. And I respect that. And listen, I knew I was going to take hits for it. I knew it. But I'd much prefer to be relevant at the end of this process than to stick to something that I don't believe is the best option and the best way to go for the vast majority of Americans.
Do you think Democrats who are holding on to Medicare for all, take away private insurance from everyone, is that a suicidal political move for the Democratic Party?
I mean, I'll leave that to the pundits, but I know what people have told me. I'm spent a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada. People want to know that they have an ability to have an option that is not only the option of government-sponsored health care, but also that there is a private option. So here's what I propose to do, is to allow the private insurance companies to basically comply with the requirements I'm putting in place for who will be part of our Medicare system. So, for example, they can no longer be about jacking up the prices around deductibles and co-pays. It will be the case that regardless of whether you have a private Medicare plan or a public Medicare plan, and when you walk into that doctor's office, you're not going to have to lay down a credit card. You lay down your Medicare card.
But in your plan, eventually, everyone would be taken off the private plan that their company currently has.
Yes, but it's important that I explain that, because I think there was really a misinterpretation of that on the debate stage tonight. Employers right now offer their employees a private plan. I am separating the employer from your health care. So you have the option of signing up for a private plan under Medicare, but it's not going to be through your employer.
So if you leave your job, you can take
And that's exactly the point. I can't tell you the number of people that I have met of all ages who say they feel stuck in the job they have because they need that health care plan. That should not be the case in America, especially when we talk about the fact that over the next 15 years, up to 40% of the jobs that currently exist will no longer exist. We have to adapt to the changing times, which includes that a lot of people are changing their employer on a much more frequent basis than used to be the case. Used to be the case, you come out of school, high school or college, you go work one place, and that's where you work until you retire. That is no longer the case in America. And no one should have to worry about losing their job or changing their job because they may not have health care once they make that decision.
In terms of the discussion you had with Vice President Biden in the last debate, it came back up. He has not in any way apologized or backtracked from what he says his position was back then. Do you think he should?
Well, we have a disagreement, and that's it. I mean, we have a disagreement. let's revisit the issue.
Because he's not portraying it in, I mean, he would deny that he is pushing a states' rights argument, when in fact it seems to be that's what he sounds like he's supporting.
Yeah, well, that's certainly what it sounded like on the debate stage last time. I was actually surprised that he said it that way. It's one thing for him to have some justification for what he did, but to say that essentially that this is a states' rights issue and that the federal government shouldn't intervene, I find to be absolutely, frankly, outrageous, because it has been the federal government that we have needed to intervene on civil rights issues, be it on issues that relate to race, what issues that relate, voting rights, Civil Rights Act, the Equality Act that I hope to pass. All of that is because the federal government needs to act on civil rights issues.
I mean, the National Guard had to be called in, and
Yeah, of course. So we have a disagreement, he and I.
Some of the toughest critique or attacks at you came from Tulsi Gabbard. Just for our viewers who haven't seen it, I just want to play some of that and have you respond.
Okay.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform.
Did you expect that from Tulsi Gabbard? Had you had interaction about that in the past? And how do you think it went?
Well, I mean, listen, this is going to sound immodest, but I'm obviously a top-tier candidate, and so I did expect that I would be on the stage and take hits tonight because there are a lot of people that are trying to make the stage for the next debate.
Yeah, for a lot of them, it's do or die.
Well, yeah, and especially when people are at 0 or 1% or whatever she might be at. And so I did expect that I might take hits tonight. But, listen, I think that this coming from someone who has been an apologist for an individual, Assad, who has murdered the people of his country like cockroaches. She who has embraced and been an apologist for him in a way that she refuses to call him a war criminal. I can only take what she says in her opinion so seriously. And so I'm prepared to move on.
In terms of just being on that stage, the learning curve of it, it's obvious, candidates get better and better and better through this gauntlet. And it's not a pleasant gauntlet, and it goes on for a long, long time. Yeah. Do you see yourself the way you were tonight, much different than the way you were the last debate, and that debate the way you were, 2 months ago? Do you feel you're a quickening? Do you feel a comfort level?
Well, certainly there is nothing normal about this process. And I don't know that there's much in the normal human
totally
experience.
Normal to me.
Right, exactly. That would prepare one for this process.
I only exist on TV.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Exactly, right?
Yes.
And people come up to you and hug you as though you're their brother.
Yes,
of
everybody.
course. And you are, in a way. Virtual brother. But so there's nothing normal about the process, and so there is a learning curve. There's no question, and I'm enjoying. I have to tell you, I don't know what it says about my personality, but I'm really enjoying this process. I'm enjoying being. The thing I enjoy most is being out there. The meetings that we take, the town halls, the interactions with people who show up on a Sunday afternoon when they can be doing 1,000 other things, right? When they have priorities, they have responsibilities, and they are there because they love our country. They are there because they are serious people and they want to listen. They're going to evaluate. They ask questions. They challenge you. And I am growing in the process. I am, and I do feel very strongly, Anderson. Let me just say, I fully intend to win this election. But for me, the metric of our success will also be that at the end of this process, we are relevant. And the only way I can ensure that is to make sure I am listening as much, if not more, than I am talking.
If the Democratic Party goes ahead with the message Medicare for all, and it's not your plan, Medicare for all, taking away ultimately health insurance from 100 million people, I know that's the criticism of that is that it's a Republican talking point, and it may be a Republican talking point, but how do you answer if that's the push for the Democratic Party, is that a position that you believe? I mean, clearly it's not something you believe in.
Right.
Is that, it's the question I asked before, is that a death knell for the Democratic Party in this election? Is that something, if the Democratic Party runs on taking away 100 million people's health insurance, is that a winning issue?
I'll leave that to the pundits to predict or to opine on, but I do.
But why isn't it something you are embracing?
Well, I just feel that what my plan is just going to be the most relevant plan, and I will tell you, the architect of the Affordable Care Act, Kathleen Sebelius, has spoken about my plan as it being something that would be one of the closest to actually achieve Medicare and health care for all people. Many experts have said that who have reviewed my plan. I'm very proud of my plan because I do believe that it is going to be the most relevant and the most helpful to American families.
How did you, how did you find Vice President Biden on that stage tonight in your discussions with him compared to the last time? Did you notice you were a more formidable opponent, the same? Did you have any sense of that?
Well, the exchanges that come to mind that we had tonight where we have a difference of opinion are on the discussion we had previously, right, the last debate, and healthcare. And I just simply disagree with his plan because, frankly, it is not a plan that is going to bring healthcare to all Americans. By his plan and the people on his team, by their own definition, almost 10 million Americans will not have health care under his plan. And in 2019, on the heels of the incredible work of Barack Obama that changed the dynamic completely, in 2019, where people are demanding a change to the healthcare system of America, that any Democrat would be on that stage and not have a plan that will bring healthcare to everybody, I just believe is it's a missed opportunity, and it is wrong because there are actually ways to achieve health care for all people.
And you can go toe to toe with Donald Trump?
For sure.
You're the one who can do that.
Absolutely, and I'm going to tell you why. Because first of all, Donald Trump got elected making a whole lot of promises to people he did not keep. He said he was going to come in and he was going to fight for working families, he was going to fight for farmers and auto workers. And as I said tonight, farmers in Iowa are looking at bankruptcy. They've got soybeans rotting in bins. Many expect that hundreds of thousands of auto workers in Michigan and other states will be out of work by the end of the year. He passed a tax bill that benefits the top 1% and the biggest corporations in America. Last year, 60 of the biggest corporations in America paid no taxes. Meanwhile, families are struggling every day. In America today, for half of American families, they cannot afford a $400 unexpected expense. In America today, in 99% of the counties, if you're a minimum wage worker, you cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment. That's why my plan is about a 3 a.m. agenda, which is what wakes people up at 3 in the morning, and let's deal with those priorities and fix them. That's why I'm offering that we will change the tax code to give tax credits to families that make less than $100,000 a year. That's why I'm saying I'm going to pay teachers their value. That's why I'm saying that we're going to pay women equally for equal work. And I could go on and on. But that's going to speak to American people. This president speaks to the lowest common denominator in terms of issues. He speaks to issues that are about scaring children. He speaks to issues that are about saying for members of the United States Congress who are serving our country to go back where you came from. He speaks to communities of color and basically says where they live is inhumane and no human should live there. He does not speak to the best of who we are as a nation, and he needs to leave office because he does not understand the strength of the American president is to use that microphone in a way that is about lifting people up, not beating them down.
Senator Harris, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You,
We're going to take a quick break. We'll have more ahead.